Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, we finish up our time here in the land of 1,000 Starborn, where giant apocalypse engines and a living sun inhabit this flat, disc-like, eye-like world. As always, I highly suggest that you go back and listen to the first part of the series because, boy, you'd be pretty lost if you just came into this. We want to thank Matt N. for suggesting this world. As always, a big thank you, especially for newer prompts. And if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com. Click on the link, follow the instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, you can go to our Twitter at Let's Worldbuild. If you want to come join us on Discord and chat about world building, if you want to come talk flat earth, all that good stuff, you can go ahead and click on the link in the description and come chat with us. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous or you just want access to our sweet, sweet patron-only episodes, you can go to our Patreon and give us money there. Now, enough with the shilling. Back to the show. Last we left off, we had a twist, which was, quote unquote, it is self-aware. So, Courtney, why don't you start us off? What is self-aware?
Yeah, I went with the sun that's in the center, which is some sort of being that had been created. And my take on the twist was that it is knowingly bringing the discarded stars closer because it's lonely and it just wants friends to hang out with.
I kind of almost felt the same way, in that giving it some sort of childlike intelligence or sentiment seems to give a color to the setting, which I think is neat.
Agreed. I also like the idea that it is, it's very understandable. It is a motivation that it understands that we can all understand, that sense of loneliness to some giant divine star being. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Initially I was thinking of other ways to take it in, but I liked the simplicity of having that with the sun.
Yeah, I went a little different direction with it. And I think that my kind of reconciliation still works with what we've got going. Because I decided that the it in this case is not, in fact, the sun. It is, in fact, the magic or the divine essence itself that kind of seeps throughout the world. So the emanations of this living star are essentially magic, and they create and instill consciousness in everything that they touch. What this means is that the sun is, like you said, Courtney, intentionally willing consciousness onto these, the kind of cast off stars that we had in the previous episode. But more than that, it's also instilling moments and brief glimpses of consciousness to inanimate objects. And the way that I'm also kind of reconciling that with humans or whatever humanoid thing that we have going on is that's basically how they interact with magic and how they control magic in this setting. The reason that I like this aspect and this kind of concept is because this thing, the magic itself, or what we can consider it magic, has a will that is completely alien. It's basically an energy being that we can interpret however we want. And there's a lot that we can play with in this particular way.
Some midichlorians.
No, not midichlorians, because it's something different than that. It's literal energy that has a grander will and a specific design. It has a motivation that we just don't and can't comprehend.
So the wills.
Sounds like midichlorians to me.
Wait, the will? What's the will?
The wills from George Lucas's original concept, proceeding after his concept of the midichlorians.
Wait, what was his idea there?
I do know what you're talking about, and it
I don't.
Me,
I don't.
And I'm still going to say yes, Daniel. So yes.
I like it though. The Wills, Whills. Apparently, and now I'm gonna get this wrong because I don't remember the exact specifics. But these like tiny beings that are like somehow like in concert with or creating the Force. I don't remember what it was. It was something really weird. There's like a thing called the Book of the Wills. I think it actually appears in the sequels, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah. But to your actual concept though, I do like it.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. So speaking of Daniel, how did you bring prequel energy to this particular setting?
I kind of was completely along the lines with you guys were, giving like the sun some kind of intelligence. That just seemed obvious. Like we have this, and we actually talked about it being a child. The other thing I thought of too was like I was thinking about the things that have been cast off, like that are frozen, and I thought maybe the machines that come in carry some remnant of their intellect as well. So like, imagining when these machines come in and are attacking, like there's whispers that come out of them people can hear because it's carrying a fragment of whatever memories are in the frozen god things outer rim.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, in my kind of reconciliation, that's also an invocation of magic, right? Like it is awakening the consciousness within these things and being like, hey, remember what you were, remember what you are.
I mean, that could be a cool way to make the villains more complex, because if those frozen things and the machines that are connected to them are all part of the same force, right, that you're describing, then they're not really evil. They're all part of the same like sense and consciousness, just that theirs is frozen, cast off.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for, is that, like this will, as we're going to call it, is kind of like instilling consciousness within them. It's doing it on purpose, and it has a reason to instill within them this kind of need and desire to move and perhaps destroy. Although I'm not sure if that's connected necessarily.
Yeah, and I like the idea too, Daniel, that you mentioned about like their memories resurfacing in some way. I'm not sure like what form that takes exactly, but it also gives them like a further level of sadness if they start remembering like, oh, when I used to get played with by this god before he threw me out, and now I'm out here alone on the outskirts of this world.
Oh, that's cool, because then like their anger is more to do with their loneliness and wanting to be reconnected with the sun or with civilization, and it can make the conflict, when it's revealed what's actually going on, like there's more of a hopeful solution to this, right? Like unfreezing them, awakening them is actually the way to end the conflict.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like figuring out how to do that without having civilization get completely destroyed in the process.
So what you're suggesting is that we should harness the will of these giant cast-off toys, right?
Yes, exactly.
Understood.
Apparently, I didn't get it too wrong. So it says Star Wars creator George Lucas intended the Wills, Whills, to be a microscopic, single-celled life forms who are essentially God. They maintain a symbiotic relationship with the midichlorians.
Wait, so what are the midichlorians then?
I guess they're like aphids, but in force.
They're bugs.
It's always aphids.
They're bacteria.
The Wills, it seems like, control the force, and midichlorians are just like, I guess, shit floating in your blood.
Yeah, there's a reason midichlorians basically died from the canon after they were initially introduced, because it's like, George, this makes no fucking sense, and also it's a bad idea. He's like, oh guys, I'm just gonna add it anyway. It's really cool.
It seems like they're supposed to be like, if you ever play the what's the one zombie game that wasn't Resident Evil, but it was similar, and it had like these women who had, I guess it was like, what's the cells in your the organelles in your cells?
Okay, you're trying to talk about Parasite Eve.
Yes, that's it. Mitochondria.
And it's not a zombie game, but that's okay.
Yeah. So the mitochondria in that story, like, were somehow essential, right? Because they're carried between generations of females. Or whatever.
They're the powerhouses of the cells.
Yeah. So I think the midichlorians are like George Lucas's weird ass version of that. It sounds like,
Yeah.
Sorry, tangent.
No, I'm all for a good tangent, frankly.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So we've kind of settled the twist fairly easily here, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We're all pretty much in alignment.
Great. Okay, cool. Next, we've got to move on to the factions. Where do we want to start with the factions? Daniel, why don't you know what? You're on a roll with your Star Wars talk today.
Yes.
So why don't you hit us with your faction first?
Are they legally distinct Jedi Knights?
Well, I think we did that setting, didn't we? We did that with Dingo Doodles.
Yeah, and there were not lightsabers in the City of 1,000 Sacrifices as well.
That's true. They were
Look, guys, we steal from Star Wars practically every episode, okay? In one way or the other. And that doesn't mean that we're thieves, it just means that we're creatives, and that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
God, I was just looking at this paragraph. It's so fucking stupid. Description of Star Wars crap.
Daniel, I need you to focus.
Yeah,
I need you to focus.
This is so dumb.
And not on Star Wars.
No, I'm just like reading the sentence. I'm like, God, what? Why? All right, so I had actually it kind of goes along with the child son thing. No, I don't know if this should encompass all the peoples of this realm, but my feeling was I wanted to have either a single race or this be the basis for others. To be more cartoonish, the creatures themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking like non-human sort of geometric people, like kind of like the Goombas in Mario or the Pikmin. You know, like,
I really thought you were gonna try and give us Gungans, and I was gonna be like,
God,
what the fuck is wrong with
Gungans.
you?
No, thank you. No, because you know, like they're like weird looking and mushroom people or plant people, and I thought that would pair with the sun being a sun. And I'm thinking like they have, you know, naturally really great strength because of the gravity shifting, separate from their gravity powers, because that would be the mages, right? And also like maybe when they're connected to the earth, like when the islands go back to the earth, they can like root and photosynthesize more strongly, I guess. I don't remember if it's up or down. Who knows? So I'm just thinking giving them plant-like qualities, making them cuter, which would give the setting more of a feeling, more of a genre, I guess. So it's not really a faction so much as a flavor for potentially all the races in this realm.
No, I really like that actually, and it kind of gives me this mental image of like the world as a giant thing of like craft paper that the god and the sun have been like doodling all over with crayons and stuff.
Like Katamari Damacy. Is that what game got Damacy?
Katamari, yeah.
Yeah.
Katamari is amazing. Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And also, unsurprisingly, a metaphor for capitalism.
Oh, really? Tell us, please.
What do you mean?
Oh, the rolling up of the
You're literally
game?
rolling
right.
everything up, and the person who you're doing it for is never satisfied. So you
Mhm.
roll
Your
and
parent.
roll, and it's more and more, and you just try and create the biggest thing possible, and it's never enough until you literally roll up the entire world. Yes, it is. It is a very blatant metaphor for capitalism.
I also saw like Freudian implications with that one because you can never please the parent, you know, in that one. Like, isn't the prince?
You know what? I'm sure there's a little bit of that too. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean, when you kind of recontextualize it as daddy capitalism, I think it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, yeah. So I love this kind of like Yoshi's Woolly world.
I was just thinking that too.
Yeah, like
Adorable
style
game.
of like person. It does add a little bit of cuteness to it, which I appreciate, especially when maybe in perhaps harsh contrast these apocalypse machines are,
Yeah, right.
you know, they're made of like hard-edged metal type thing, you know, or like they take on a more spiky appearance. That might help as well.
Yeah, I think that would be good because it'd be a good contrast, and they could be scarier looking. You know, and maybe it's a deliberate clash of styles because then you could have. Yeah, I was just watching that terrible movie, with Doctor Strange one. Just a disaster of a movie, but I was watching it, and there's one part where they're like falling between universes, and one universe to like turn into paint, and another universe is like diamonds everywhere. I could imagine there being like a literal genre disconnect. Or not genre disconnect, stylistic disconnect between those two types of things, where the people are and the machines come from.
I like that concept as well because there's a clear delineation between the divine and like the mortal.
Yeah, like maybe the creatures are more drawn out, like Courtney was saying, like more more artistic, and then the realm of the sun and the realm of the exterior is actually very realistic, and the collision of those two is really what's causing this chaos.
Oh yeah, so as those machines are wandering through it, maybe it's not that they're like physically ripping stuff apart, it's just that they're like the style is shifting
and making them grow up.
Yeah, aw.
No, I hate
Aw.
that. No, God.
Aw.
Love it.
It's so sad.
No, that's
Maybe the ones in the exterior are more like adults, and
They're
this
the
is a
jaded
story about
teenagers.
it's like a story about like coming to what do you call it? I'm all the words today. What's the thing? Coming of age. That's the
Coming of age, but also
it's
like
all the vodka this morning.
What's it called? What's it also called? It's like a Romans building or something like that.
Wait, what?
Bildungsroman.
Thank you, Bildungsroman.
Yeah.
I just had it reversed. Okay.
Yeah. No,
Tell us this term.
It's literally just coming of age tale.
Yeah.
I
That's
see.
Just a
basically
fancy
what
way
it
to
is.
say it.
It's just the fancy term for it.
I haven't heard that one. I gotta Google that.
Yeah. That's what my master's degree is getting me, the ability to tell you what a Bildungsroman is, even though
Very
I
important.
don't know what it's called.
You got it. It was close.
Never a Bildungsroman.
Thank you. Yeah.
How do you spell this?
Bildungsroman.
Oh, it's the German word, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A novel dealing with one's formative years or spiritual education. Interesting.
Like I said, it's a fucking coming of age tale. It's basically the same shit.
Yeah, and I do like that idea for this setting. It's like almost like balancing coming of age, but also still trying to keep that childlike imagination, not becoming this like jaded, cold entity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on, because now when we bring this up, we're also talking about literal burnout as well.
Ooh,
because we have a fucking sun here. And if we're talking about Bildungsroman, and if we're talking about like coming of age tales, like the very real and hard theme that we can deal with is literal burnout in this regard, I think. Especially in regards to creativity.
Yeah. I've never dealt with that. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, Courtney, we've definitely done some episodes of the podcast where it's like, ooh, we're skirting that line of like really burnt out.
Oh yeah.
There's lots of themes you could play with, given the kind of the larger genre putting this in.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't know how I can reconcile my faction with this new shift, but I'm gonna try, and I think that it can work. It's just that aesthetically, I find them to be very different from what I want. But I had this idea that there is a massive organization called the Sun Chasers, and they're very well organized. There's a bunch of nerds who plan stuff out. There's researchers, there's architects, and then there's the crazy batshit daredevils that are kind of the most important part of it. So the whole concept is at night when the creatures, the cast-offs are supposed to be, the apocalypse engines are supposed to be off, there is this group of people who get close to one of these machines with a sun. Like they basically capture part of the sun and store it. It's like kind of like lightning in a bottle. And they use it to lure some of these creatures in certain directions. And what this does is you're literally being chased by a giant apocalypse engine. So like that's kind of like fun and interesting and terrifying. But it's also like there's a way that they're trying to actively slow down this apocalypse from happening. And in some cases, it's about, like, okay, we need to angle this monster this way so it doesn't wipe out this town that really can't be moved. And in other cases, maybe they're trying to be more clever about it. Like, well, if we move this one and this fast one and like leave them so they're about to collide into each other, maybe something good can come of that. Like that's kind of, but again, going back to like the action-y part of it, I'm imagining them just being like, okay, you've got to run because this thing is fast and it will catch you and you will die.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. Like brings to mind Monster Hunter kind of vibes. You've got these crazy daredevil warriors running around with bits of sun in their backpacks and try to lure things away. I like
Yeah,
that.
I also had like, we didn't really nail down a level of tech in this world yet. I had it in my mind that they're like riding on like motorcycles or like dune buggies. So
Yeah.
like there's a Mad Max vibe to it
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. I can totally see that working too with the new feel, only because for one, it's wacky, but also it makes you think of, you know, kind of the animal feel of like Star Fox, you know, plus technology. So you can have these people with crazy technology and they still kind of goofy feeling, because they've got this anthropomorphized style to it.
Yeah, definitely.
In this case, they're like funguses, I guess, or whatever they are. You know?
Well, you
Turnips.
said Goombas, but I'm definitely picturing them more as like Toad and Toadette style.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Is Toad a Goomba? Like, I was trying to Google this and I couldn't get a clear answer.
No, Toad is not a Goomba.
Like, it seems like there's a race of fungi people and the Goombas are one of them, but I don't know if Toad is just like another part under that umbrella.
So the way in the original, I don't know if the lore has been updated, but in the original like old school Mario Bros style manual, basically there was a curse that was put on the entire world, and all the regular people were turned into not just Goombas, but also blocks and trees and clouds. Which is why almost everything in the Mario universe has like weird faces on them. So like the trees, so when you open the blocks and destroy them, you're actually killing people.
Oh,
that's nice.
Oh,
yeah, it's like
it's real nice.
It's pretty fucking dark.
Love it.
And then I think it was pretty like early on, like dropped entirely. You know.
Oh,
but,
I see.
Yeah, but I think that there is a big difference between Goombas and Toad. You know what? Listeners can tell us what the difference is. You can come to our Discord. If it's the only thing that you type to us, let us know the difference between Goombas and Toad.
Yes, please.
Wow.
Please educate us.
Yes. Wow. Cool. Oh, anyway, yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's also this idea that I had in mind, because now that we've kind of we're shifting and we're dealing with like new themes and stuff like that. I see these people as an expression of that kind of youthful daredevil, like almost suicidal levels of like stupidity in that way, because you just think that you're invincible, right? When you're younger.
Yeah. So effectively, like they're toddlers running around doing things that would absolutely just get them killed just because it's fun.
And they do it, and they do die. Like there's no getting around it. Like you will get atomized by these apocalypse engines.
I like it. And I think I don't want to lose sight too of the idea that they're stealing hunks of the sun.
Yeah,
like, that seems very difficult to get to that place and bring it back, you know.
Well, I think it's more like they just harness it. Like, because we're going in a more cartoony vibe, I can kind of almost see it as like they're like basically holding up a big glass jar and like storing it that way. Like if we're doing
like charging stuff, they're not going literally to the sun and pulling hunks out of it.
Correct.
They've got like a really, really long net that they use to capture the rays of the sun.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Is the sun up when the islands go up? That's when the sun is up.
Yeah,
that's right. Then when it goes down, they go down. So maybe like when I was talking with them being photosynthesizing, when the sun is up, everybody goes out and gets sunlight and gets photosynthesized. Maybe that's when they set up their little helium balloons of charging stations to charge their little orbs and bring them down.
I don't even think you need the helium balloons because the gravity is so out of whack. Like, you basically just ride a mountain and then it's like, cool, you know?
Or whatever orb charges. I imagine some kind of vessel holds the light, you know?
Yes.
In their backpacks.
And yeah, I could see like a team of gravity mages like carefully balancing one of them towards the sun to grab the light that they need and pulling them back.
Makes me think of the beryllium sphere in like Galaxy Quest, but orb that you're harnessing light from.
Yeah.
I have never seen Galaxy Quest. I cannot contribute to this in any way.
But it's legitimately fantastic. Excellent.
It's better than Picard and any of the new Star Trek series created.
Wait,
without a doubt.
I thought there was that one good series on Star Trek.
Nope.
No, like the outer reaches or something like that. Do you know what
Are
I'm
you
talking
talking
about?
about the new one that features the captain that was in one episode in the pilot?
I know he looks
New
handsome. That's all I
Horizons.
know. He's got
I'm
like
pretty sure
silver hair and he's handsome.
I haven't watched it, so I can't confirm that it is garbage, but I'm confirming that it is garbage.
Is that the Discovery one? Or
No, Discovery comes after Discovery.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's different. It's different.
I'm
All right.
very
Well,
out of the loop.
look, Daniel, that's your homework.
I'll watch it and come back.
Yeah, that's your homework. You got to watch some Star Trek and come back so you can rage about it.
It makes me think, the RLM guys, like the Red Letter Media guys, when they had to watch Picard, like they're still emotionally scarred from it. And this is what you're going to make me do.
Yes, that's correct. I can't believe how bad Picard is. It's so ridiculous.
It's a defeat. They really achieved something with how shitty it is.
Wow.
It's true.
Wow.
It's true. Anyway, back to the episode, I guess. So where were we? We were talking about Daniel has to go and watch the new Star Trek, and Courtney has to tell us your faction.
All right. This is going to be interesting to fit in terms of the new kind of vibe that we're going for.
How can we get blood sacrifice from these cute cartoon things? Yeah, absolutely.
Technically no blood sacrifice in this, but we'll see.
Okay, sap, I guess, because they're plant creatures. whatever like justification you want to give it, Courtney.
So at first I had a faction that was pretty straightforward, like a nomadic group that used gravity, but then I got to thinking about our discussions around magic last episode. We'd had this idea for 2 types of magic based on the sun's day-night cycle, and I wanted to go back to that because we hadn't really solidified it. My thought was that if gravity magic is active during the day, what if during the night it was based on time control? Like, in a way, the sun's presence creates a sense of order during the day, and when it's gone, it's possible to like just do weird shit with time dilation. And then maybe as you go farther from the sun out towards where those discarded star beings are at, like time itself gets really, really strange, and there are animals that can naturally manipulate time. So to get to my actual faction, they're called the Time Eaters, and the name comes from it's been a while since I referenced this show, but in season 3 of Legion, there are creatures also called Time Eaters that manipulate time, and it's like a really cool and disturbing effect. So my group here is obsessed with time. Like, they're a collection of mages who have heavily focused their energy on studying time magic, supplemented by like actually consuming the flesh of those weird time dilation animals. I guess that's like kind of blood sacrifice. They're viewed by society at large as outcasts, like people who have gone way too far with a really dangerous power. They can wither away crops, like seemingly teleport, cause wounds to reappear on people, all kinds of things. And on the one hand, some of them likely want the sun to just die out completely, so they're always at max power. On the other hand, they could also be key to pushing back the cast-off Starborn that are moving towards the center.
I love that. And I love the concept of it's a possibility that being frozen really has to do with time, not ice, like further out, which I think makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it works well with your idea of like bringing in those memories from the past too.
Oh, right.
Like maybe the grip on time is being loosened as it gets exposed to the sun's rays.
And it also gives you a secondary magic too, right? Like so you've got gravity and time.
Yeah.
Well, remember that they're both the same sides, or they're the same coin, right? So it's not as though they're 2 separate opposing forces. They're actually the same thing, just wielded at different times.
Right. It gives you like 2 flavors to work with.
Right. It's kind of like when you have like soft serve ice cream, when you get the swirl. That's basically what we're dealing with here.
I mean, what's also cool is that at least from even though this setting doesn't have any interest in science, like gravity and time are part of the same thing in the sense that they affect the same thing, and they're so there you go.
And I mean, we can bring it back to the singular will of the magic as well. So again, it will somehow become even more hard science than the non-science we were dealing with. So it's good.
You can also think about it metaphorically, like this is kind of cheesy, but like gravity is the weight of the situation, and then time, has to do with memory and feeling and emotion. And you can like use those like metaphorically in the setting if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Again, metaphor for like coming of age. It's literally all happening for sure. All right, so I like the fact that we've kind of dealt with like time and gravity. I love that. I love the factions. I get a much clearer sense of the world now. We're early. Like now we got to figure out a main quest line here.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's obviously that we've got to do like a coming of age story here. So how can we incorporate all that together?
I'm open to rolling dice if none of you have ideas.
I am too. I think you would want to start small. So we haven't talked about actual characters. And so I imagine we'd want to invent a few characters or a character who has a need and then tie that to the larger cosmic Gladys that we've created.
Well, I think that so far we really only have like 2 factions to work with that we can draw characters from, right? So I think it makes sense that in some way we put them at odds with one another. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Because then maybe you can find a way to reconcile them. There's in the same way we have the 2 cosmic forces that are opposed but are trying to have a need to reconcile.
Of course, yeah.
Or it could be like they're forced to work together at some point. Or 2 characters are anyway.
Yeah, I think so. So let's give ourselves a little reminder. So the Sun Chasers are active at night, which is also when your kind of time eaters are active as well, or most active as well, right? So I think that works in terms of creating conflict because they're both trying to do things at the same time, right?
They seem to have innately different, or at least your guys seem to have more of a renegade feel to them too. So, but the time eaters are also outcasts, right?
Yeah, very much so.
So maybe their ambitions aren't necessarily at odds because they both seem to be pushed out of society in a sense.
I'm gonna push back on that because the Sun Chasers that I had in mind are like part of a massive organization that is like deeply embedded it into the society as is, because it's like their job is to save cities and save countries from the apocalypse engines.
Oh, I didn't know, because based on how you described them, it seemed like they were kind of daredevils that people would not necessarily.
Those are basically the field worker, like those are the field agents. Those are the people who are like, I'm putting myself in insane risk, but they're also getting orders from on high to do that.
So they have sentiment, is what you mean? Is that the daredevil is sentiment rather than the way they operate?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so then it would seem that they would be at odds because the time people are doing things as outcasts that isn't the way society likes, because of they don't really understand them. Whereas these not renegades, but these sun stealer types, like they are authorized in a sense by society to protect it.
Yes, but also like a reminder that they're literally putting their lives on the line to do this type of shit. So it's not like they're fucking cops. It's not like they're like, oh, they're good guys. It's like, no, they're more like, you got to be a little crazy to do that part of the job,
Well, I'm asking what's the perspective of the society to them, right? So like, how do people view them? Do they view them as a positive thing that helps the world? Whereas we know they don't like the time guys because they're weird.
I like to think that they look at the Sun Chasers more in a way that is like, we don't really know what they do in the field, but we know that they do good, and therefore we like that.
Yeah. So then in a way, like they can be valorized. Like maybe they're not, guys, it seems like they're not regarded as cops, right? Because it doesn't seem like they operate on the streets helping people. They do they're kind of like superheroes, it sounds like.
I wouldn't necessarily classify them that way, but I'm sure that society might deify them in that way.
Or like they're almost like dragon slayers in a way.
Okay.
Like
heroes.
They're doing good by like wiping out a threat or moving a threat away, but it's obviously a very dangerous job.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what I like? I like this idea that have either of you seen Unforgiven?
No. What's that?
It's a great deconstruction of the Western genre. And it's what it also is. It kind of peels back the layers of what it means to be like a gunfighter in the Wild West, and how the perception and the reality are completely different of like what they do and who they actually are. And I like that idea that that's what we're kind of dealing with here, is that, yeah, the individuals have this great mythology and they have this like crazy thing. But then like when you actually meet them, they're like, oh, these people are just like kind of crazy a little. And they're like kind of a mess personally, you know?
Well, we're trying to pluck now characters from these two now that we understand their relationship to society.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I mean, now that we have a better understanding, let's talk about the Time Eaters, right? Like, why are they shunned? Like, what about them is like so sinister and so, you know, counterculture that they're shunned from the rest of the world?
Yeah, I think it's that the way that they use their power is probably very self-serving, and that could again tie back into the whole like wanting to hold on to your childhood or your youth too much. Like they're obsessed with like maybe keeping things as they are or keeping them as they remember them to be and using that power to like extend their own lives.
So how do we, as I'm going to step in for Daniel here, so how do we make that literal? How do we make that physical in the world that we've created so far?
Well, if they're varieties of Mario-like beings, what do these guys look like? You know, what would reflect the way they are?
Yeah.
Or are they like the Mario-like beings, but they're changed in some way?
Yeah, I did. When I was picturing them as like people, I had them in mind as like more Rasputin-y types, like very occult-y and
Stinky? Do they stink?
Yeah, maybe probably yeah, don't adhere to societal standards for grooming and that sort of thing.
I mean, they could have a stench that has something to do with their powers.
Yeah.
If you want.
Like the odor of time itself is kind of stuck on them. Yeah, that's interesting.
I actually think that the odor of time is kind of fun. But if we're dealing with like plant life, if we're making all of these plant creatures, then why not just make them garlic?
Oh. Interesting. Yeah.
Or some variations of sneaky plants like that, you know?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think like, you can personify these things in a way like that. Like that would be fine.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't know what you imagine. What are the physical qualities of like the sun chasers, you know? I'm trying to picture now like a Wild West character.
Well, again, in my mind, they're riding motorcycles. So
a Mad Max kind of character.
Mad Max style, like leather jacket, not like black leather jacket, but like brown leather duster style of leather jacket.
So what's the cool plant then in the plant world? Are they flowers? Like,
well, that might make sense considering that they're sunflowers.
Because they are taking the sun, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is their coolness expressed because they're so colorful, even though that's not like a bad guy cool or a bad boy cool, but it could be in the setting, you know? Like say like in Japan, like, you know, men and movie stars are actually flashier, right? So maybe it's parallel to that.
Yeah, like they absorb more of the sun's rays than most people because they're carrying around like bottles of sunlight. And that in turn makes them more colorful.
Can we go in the opposite direction? So maybe everyone else is really colorful, but they're actually like bleached in some way because their exposure to the sun. So they're basically like bleach blonde all the time.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
And again, I'm thinking like slick back hair, but it'd be like flower petals, I guess.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah, and then conversely, the Time Eaters could be like kind of old, dried out garlic and onions and stuff like that.
And
like
cold.
Crinkly, yeah.
I do like the idea that they're root vegetables as well, because you get like underground, like they're literally underground.
Yeah.
So what's the conflict? We're talking about aesthetic here, which I love. Like, I think this is super fun, but I mean, maybe we should roll some dice to kind of give us at least a genre or at least a theme to kind of roll for.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Okay. So we're focusing on a theme here. We've got a conflict set up between the Time Eaters and the Sun Chasers. The theme that we rolled is treachery. So how do we make this important and exciting within the setting? Obviously, I think that one person or a group of people is going from one team to the other. What does that look like, and what are the implications?
My feeling is that there is higher ups on both groups, so within the time people and in the sun people, that are either colluding for some kind of either cataclysmic or dangerous thing that could pose a threat to society in general for some reason that they perceive as good. And the lower level characters in each of these factions become aware of it and are forced to work together.
I particularly like that because it does give a real credence to this idea of like the renegade style, or like there's that kind of rebelliousness that comes with coming of age and stuff like that. So I think that does work thematically as well.
With the adults are doing something that is a problem, and we have to finally make a grown-up decision for ourselves.
Ooh, making the grown-up decision. Yes.
Yeah, maybe it's not that they're going towards the cataclysm, but that they're keeping things as they are. Oh. Like they want this tension to remain so that they both have roles. They don't want to have to make the call about which way to go.
I love that. I love the idea that they're in cahoots the entire time. And like this whole ballet is like a charade to keep the natural progression from happening.
Yeah.
Right. And it could be, they may not even be nefarious. Like sometimes grown-ups just, they have had so much gravity in their lives, right, that they can't make any more changes. Like they've become contented and they're afraid of making change. Whereas the young don't see things that way. They see things as changeable because they haven't experienced all these problems. So maybe that's part of what it is. Like these younger characters are looking at what they're doing and they're like, we can change this. We can fix this. And the others have given up.
You know?
I love that, by the way. I don't want to skip over that. But the entire time I'm just thinking, you know who's really at fault here? It's the sun. The sun is the one who's keeping things in stasis because it knows once those apocalypse engines get to the center, that its time as the sun is over. It's the time to mature. It's the time to change.
But isn't the sun a child? Like, I feel like it would I feel like I want to keep it innocent in some way. You know what I mean?
I mean, it could be like a childlike innocence of not wanting to grow up.
Is it? Oh, that could work. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't know. It does.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
It could also be the fact that it's like the golden child, essentially, and it, even though it wants friends, it still likes the attention and the worship that it gets.
I like being an only child. That's what it's like.
Okay. So a combination of the two, because I like the idea that it's kind of ignorant to the fact. So like that would work because then it's still childlike. It still has impulses, right? I just don't want it to be evil or nefarious.
No, I think it's like another layer of like how the god being was a child and didn't realize what it was doing by casting off these discards, and now the sun is kind of in a similar spot where it doesn't realize that the actions it's taking have all these implications.
Okay, hold on. So when the sun rises and it emits its things, it's actively trying to cast off its adulthood. So the fact that you control time and gravity with the power that you gain from the sun, like it's actively rejecting that. So like thematically, it even makes sense.
I see. Like it's trying to get rid of those things that are innate to it.
The things that would make it grow up and mature and become new and different. Yeah. Okay. I mean, this sounds great. Okay.
Yeah,
how do we bring the conflict to a head?
I mean, it would definitely have to be like one or two people from the factions grouping up together to, maybe, I guess, talk to the sun and kind of convince it that it needs to grow up and it can't keep holding on to its youth forever.
Do they do this by harnessing the power of an apocalypse engine and riding it like a giant mecha / like Zoid?
Yes, they do.
We also have to factor in the things at the edge, right? Like, so there has to be some kind of resolution with those creatures too, because they need to wake up, right? Didn't we just establish that? And they need to, there needs to be a reconciliation between them and the sun.
Yeah, it could be like once the sun accepts that it needs to grow up, it's like, I don't know, it allows the cast-offs to also to sort of come to terms with what was done to them and kind of recover from that.
I mean, we also don't have to solve the whole story. This can be much smaller. I think our move generally is to try and do that, but sometimes if we're dealing with little characters, we can solve a smaller problem first.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of this like from the big perspective that's like, yeah, the end of this entire setting / series is a time eater and a sun chaser piloting one of the cast-offs and like crashing it into the sun as like a rude awakening type thing. But that's like the action movie ending. So like, I agree with Daniel. Right. I think like focusing on a smaller issue. Maybe the smaller issue that we can kind of deal with is like figuring out a way to control one of the cast-offs in a more direct way.
Yeah, or giving, that could be the thing that wakes up the parents, that makes them realize things are not unchangeable. So the two leaders of the factions, to get people all on board to make a big change. Yeah. And in that story, you could learn that the son actually is alive and is yearning to be with friends, but it is part of this whole problem and what the frozen people really are. So at least you're solving those things, giving awareness, and you're getting the story moving forward without having to solve the whole setting.
Yeah.
Great.
I like that.
How do we do that?
I mean, I like what you said in terms of trying to control one of the machines. Like maybe they, for whatever reason, like that's the solution they come up with. But then in doing that, they can hear what those machines say because the magic is all connected, right? And so they learn some things that then, if the adults knew, would change the whole situation.
Yeah, it could be using like the captured sunlight to sort of awaken the memories in this machine creature thing, and using maybe the time dilation or time control to like almost help the thing relive those experiences or do something to that effect. It's like a form of therapy, basically.
Yeah. Can we drive this, because Daniel keeps referring to them as parents and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Can we really drive a stake through this metaphor? Can we make it so the younger you are, or perhaps like when you reach a certain age, that's when you're at your most potent for magic use? So the people who are in the field, whether they be sun chasers or time eaters, like they're very young. Like this is suddenly a YA novel,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. Yeah.
Great. And then of course, because we have that, then we can add in all the feelings and the romance and stuff like that too. When you have a Romeo and Juliet style thing with the sun chasers and the time eaters.
And their own coming of age and all that brings with them.
It's layered. It's layered like an onion.
Like a time eater onion. Exactly.
All right. I feel like that's a great place to kind of cool it with it, because I feel like anymore, and we're really just drilling down. Like I feel like we've struck gold. We don't need to go any further.
Yeah, I love this.
Great. All right. Well, with all that, I just want to thank Matt N again for suggesting this prompt and coming along on this journey with us as we build this setting, because oh boy, it took a wild ride, let me tell you. Of course, if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, click on the link, follow the instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world and having our own Bildungsroman at the same time. I mean, I the more that I think about it, each setting is basically a coming of age, just every age all at once, I guess. But anyway, if you want to follow us on social media, we're over on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild. If you want to come join us on Discord, you can find a link for that in the description. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous and want to give us money over on Patreon, click on the link in the description, where you'll find stuff like, patron-only episodes, early episodes, and a sweet little Discord area that you can come chat with us. That'll do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much, and we're going to get through this together. Until next week.